Hey there, CPO here, and today we're going to remove the fuel tank out of this 2004 TJ, and I'm going to take you along for the ride. So let's do this. I'll show you step by step what I'm doing to get this thing out of the Jeep. All right, this job is a lot easier because I have the tires removed. I have the axle dropped. Actually, the shocks and springs are out because I'm doing a lift installation. And the reason I'm removing the fuel tank is two-part. Number one, I need to finish putting the bolts for the rear bumper, which I need to drop the tank to get those in. And also I snapped off all of the rear upper shock bolts, so I'm gonna have to do some cutting and work on that. So it's a good time probably just to remove the fuel tank and get that out of the way for this process. So the fuel tank is held in by the fuel tank skid, and there are 3 nuts on the front, and then there are 4 along the back side here. Ignore these, but these guys here are what we need. And everything has been adequately soaking in PB Blaster, which is step number 1. Pretty much of anything I'm doing is PB Blastering the crap out of things. Whether or not it helps or not is another story. The other cool thing about having all of this removed, right, the springs, the shocks, the tires, is I can easily see all of these fuel line connections, and that means I can also show you how to deal with those. But the very first thing we want to do is remove the pressure from the fuel system, and we're going to do that by coming over here and removing the relay. So if you look here, convenient guide here, our fuel pump relay is this one, which actually happens to be this one right here. There is this missing spot here that is a little bit confusing. That's if I had a Rubicon, apparently, because it's got the lockers, relays and all that. So anyway, this is our fuel pump relay, right? So I'm gonna pull that out. Okay, set that in there so I don't lose it. And now we're gonna go crank the thing over, and it'll start probably, but then we'll very quickly lose fuel pressure and probably die. Actually, it's already lost fuel pressure. It's been sitting here for a while, so we're good to go there. All right, now our fuel lines should be without pressure. So now we can go ahead and deal with those. So these are very simple push connectors. I've got one here, one here. Let's see here. It looks like I've got one up in here. I've got an electrical connector right here. So these push connectors may be a little bit confusing at first, but basically there's a side that you push. You can see it here, this blue section here on this connector. It's the same connector, it's just you're looking at the different sides. So this one has a similar little pad, and basically what I'm gonna do is go in and push, and you see how that spreads out? And that loosens up, frees the connector. All right, there's one. So here's a little better look at the inside of that connector. When you push that, it spreads those inner tabs, which allows it to release. So I'm gonna go ahead and release the rest of these connectors. Okay. All right, so there we go. There's all 3 fuel connectors. 1, 2, 3. Should be pretty easy to figure out where they go once you get the tank back in place. The other thing we have to deal with is this breather tube for the diff. I'm just gonna go ahead and pull it off the diff right now. So I'm not sure exactly where that goes to at this point, but I do know that it's sort of intermingled with these fuel lines. So just to make things easier, I'll just pull it off right there. And then the last thing we have is this electrical connection here. All right, this is a pretty common electrical connection. There's this little red tab that we're gonna push down, and then will allow us to depress this piece. You can see there, just pull that down, and then we're just gonna press this and pull that out. This did come off the little bracket. No big deal. I'll put it back on there when we have the tank out. Anyway, those are the connections for the fuel tank. So unless I'm missing something, that should be all we have to deal with. All right, so I'm on the passenger side. I did find another connector here. This looks like some sort of a vent connector. So same thing, similar push. Just gonna push that down and then pull it. Actually, these fuel tank connectors are probably the easiest thing I've done on this Jeep. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is put the jack underneath here to hold the weight of this tank. I've got this 4x4 up here, which allows me to spread the load. There's these sort of reinforcing ribs, and I'm across 3 of them. All right, so just putting pressure on it, not actually lifting with it. And then before we actually drop it, we need to come in here and get these 4 screws removed. Now, ideally, you want to do this with an empty fuel tank. My tank isn't empty. It's probably about less than a quarter. It's on the empty side, but as you can see, I'm not in a position to go drive it around and burn fuel. So these are a T25 Torx. All right, once those are out, this whole assembly is now loose and can pull off the backside. All right, so there's 3 nuts holding this on. They are 1/2 inch. And this one's pretty rusty. Get it on there. Alright, so that's all of my gas tank mounting nuts removed. Let's lower it down. Alright, so as I was dropping the tank, I was looking to make sure I had everything, and it looks like I missed like a section of these things. On the passenger side. This is right at the passenger side taillight area. There was a cover here which I actually had zip tied up. I moved that, and it looks like you can see up in there there's a couple more push connections to undo. So I'm gonna do those 2, and that should free me up completely the rest of the way. There you go. Now that I got it disconnected, you can see this little bundle of I don't know, vent lines or whatever here had to come out. So it's this one, and then one massive one which has all of these connected to it. So anyway, looks like everything else is out. Now I can start dropping the tank the rest of the way. There we go. Just took a little work to get that filler neck out of there. Boom. There we go. Gas tank is out. You can see, actually, didn't need to do that clip because that was connected to this. It was easier to undo this one main one. And I noticed it because I saw these starting to stretch. So, quick overview again. Make sure you undo the screws that hold the filler neck up into the body. And there were these 3 fuel lines, 1 electrical harness, and then these 2 on this side. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 nuts, and it's out. So, and this is about a 1/4 tank of gas, no problems at all with weight or anything like that. So anyway, now I can get to work on other things that I needed to do, which required getting this thing out. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.